What it do? You are listening to the Chronic and Shank Variety Conversation podcast for winners and really cool people, where two brains from two different countries and zero filters collide in conversations that go wherever the topic takes us.
We're your hosts. I'm Shank.
And I'm Chronic. We have a variety of conversations about things that we love.
And we love to share it with all of you out there.
So, lighters unite, tune in, and let's get into it, because if you're listening to this, you're already a winner and definitely really cool.
Today's topic is Apple and Android, the differences between them, the similarities between them, things we love and things we hate.
Oh, and before we get started, remember to slap that subscribe button like it owes you some money and show the like thumb some love.
So, Chronic, like I said in the intro there, we are going to be talking today about Apple and Android, not Apple versus Android, and I worded it like that on purpose because neither of us hates either one.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not.
It's beneficial for both.
Yeah, we're not like strongly opined that it's like anybody who uses Apple's terrible. I mean, we're not like that, but we do know there are benefits and downsides to each of the different operating systems and the different form factors and stuff like that. So today we can talk about what we personally use and what we personally enjoy about both, and give the people listening the opportunity to comment about what they use and how they feel about the topic, right? So I know you're an Android user, so why don't we talk about your experience first? I'm an iPhone user, so I will talk about that in a minute, but you're an Android user, so we'll talk about your experience first. So how do you feel about Android? What do you like about your Android? And what are some of the things that you kind of like about your phone and that operating system?
So it really comes down to, and I'll put this out there you said at the beginning, I don't hate iPhone just because I'm an Android user. I have actually had an iPhone in the past. I've owned an iPhone. I've used one. It was the iPhone 12, I believe.
Nice.
Or 13. I think it was a 12. But I do remember when I was younger, I was all Apple. You know what I mean? Whenever I wanted a smartphone really badly, I remember seeing the iPhone 4, and I really, 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 really wanted that phone. Like, I was like, that's cool. I like how Apple looks, because, that's whenever they had iPods out, the iPod Touch.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was just, I liked the UI. I liked how iOS looked. iOS was very ahead of its time in terms of look. It didn't look very office.
Well, Steve Jobs was all about aesthetic, right?
Exactly. So
he
knew what
wanted
he
it
was
to
doing
be a
with that.
spiritual art form type thing.
Exactly. And honestly, that's why it still holds up in the modern times. Like, people wonder why they haven't changed much. It's because, it was revolutionary for its time, and now we're in its time. Now it looks like it's something that's supposed to be out like that. And the reason why I say that in terms of their looking at how they operate and open up apps and down to the animations and stuff is because I'm a Samsung Android fan. Because there's many, 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 many different kind of Androids out there that you can get. But let's be honest, when people talk about an Android, 95% of the time they're talking about a Samsung.
Yeah, I used to love HTC. HTC was my
rest
go-to.
in peace,
But yeah, RIP HTC. I used to fucking love HTC, but the Samsung is what people are thinking when they think Samsung. Android, they think Samsung.
And let's be honest. When somebody is talking about an iPhone versus Android debate, they're always talking about Samsung. And Samsung's honestly, besides good. Now, don't get me wrong, I have had my hands on it, not personally owned one, but I've operated and used and been through many different models and stuff like that of the Google Pixel. And that's a pretty solid phone. I can't even deny that. That's a very, very, it's another flagship phone. So if you're talking about Android flagship, I guess you would talk about Samsung, Motorola, Google Pixel, but we don't talk about Motorola too much.
Motorola is not really a thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they are,
but they're not
flagship. Yeah. They're not flagship. So we're talking flagship Androids here, and that's honestly only the Samsungs and Google Pixels. But Samsung has recently came out with a new update on because they have their own take on Android. And it's very similar to iPhone, extremely similar. And it's honestly the things when I owned an iPhone, the things I liked about the iPhone, they kind of integrated in this new UI with the Samsung.
Yeah.
So I really much appreciate that. And then little things that I was that would get on my, get on my nerves, I guess you could say, it would be whenever you would pull down the screen on the iPhone and you got your notifications, but then you pull to the right where the battery and stuff is, and that's like your uh
Your
where your
Wi-Fi,
flashlight is and
your
Wi-Fi and all
flashlight,
that stuff. Yeah.
calculator.
Um, I thought like, why can't I just as simple as like swipe over to the other? Like if I accidentally pulled the wrong menu down, why can't I just swipe over instead of
Yeah.
having to go back up and bring that one down? Or sometimes it glitches out and I had to go bring that menu back up to bring the other one down. And
Hmm.
then on Samsung, they were like, okay, flick, and now I could do that. And I was like, oh, cool. That's that's what I
Yeah.
was looking for. And
Yeah. Well, I
um,
think when Android first
that's
came out,
nitpicky as hell, by the way.
well,
I
it was
didn't,
a
you
very
know, but
utilitarian. Like I feel like it was like when Android first came out, it was a very utilitarian kind of setup. So like it was like Apple was all about aesthetics and about culture and about spirituality, whatever. Steve Jobs described it as like spiritual technology or whatever. But when Android first came out, it was made by Google, and it
yep.
was like, and it was
And
one of
if
those
people
things
don't know,
where
Android is owned. It's a
it is,
Google-owned
yeah, it
operating
is owned.
system.
It is still more open source, but it is owned by Google.
Yep.
But basically, when it first came out, it was very utilitarian. It was like for people who wanted, like, for essentially the
Almost like it.
nerdier people
Right.
that,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, that wanted to be able to do more with their phone because they felt like smartphones were going down the path of being more limited.
And I'm glad that you brought that in. I'm 100% you brought that in because that's what I was going to get into with why
Yeah,
I like my Samsung.
yeah.
Is now I got this like very pretty looking UI that's very appealing to the eyes. It's very smooth, um, all that kind of stuff,
Very
and
modern.
very modern looking, very professional looking. You know, I really enjoy it. I like where they went with it. And some people will say it's a straight knockoff of iPhone. You know what? I don't care. I don't care if one brand borrows an idea from the other because it's
Mhm.
working. That's
Yeah.
called business.
Yeah,
And you know,
it's
like that.
and you can't. I mean, you can like that's the thing too is like there are certain elements of a UI that you can copyright and stuff like that. Like there are certain like elements and stuff, but for the most part, it's kind of like if you and I were having a challenge where we were like we need to make a bicycle, like it's like you need to make a bicycle and I need to make a bicycle, and we both sit down and we start making bicycles. They're gonna end up with a lot of similar elements because there's only so many ways that you can make an efficient bicycle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's like we can cobble something together and have it be really inefficient. Like one of us might make a penny farthing and the other person might make like a mountain bike. But eventually, if we make different iterations over time and we like iterate and
Mhm.
like break it down and find out what works and what doesn't work, eventually, with especially with user interfaces and UIs and stuff like that, for all the buds at home who don't know that UI stands for user interface,
Yep.
um, like after a certain amount of time of making it like the things that work and finding out what works and what doesn't, they're going to end up looking very similar. And
Exactly.
like
They're almost going to look identical. They're
yeah.
gonna, and you see that with car brands, you see that with
Hmm.
phones, you see
The
that,
reason why
you
every car
know.
looks the same is because aerodynamics
And let's be
are
honest,
aerodynamics.
anytime a phone brand tries to do something different, it's immediately criticized just because it's different.
Hmm.
People aren't used to it. And the
Yep.
thing is even down to like the one thing I really enjoyed also about my iPhone was I love how it looked. I've always liked the direction that iPhone has taken with the look of
Oh,
their phones. They've
yeah.
always looked very nice. Like you said, Steve Jobs really based off aesthetics.
Yeah.
Apple really kept carrying that idea. And now,
Yep.
like I know the camera can't see this, but I'll put definitely a prompt on the screen. But now these newer Samsungs look almost identical to what an iPhone looks like. Like you
Yeah.
can like like I mean the one way to
They've
tell
got
the
the
difference is
flat
the
edges.
cameras.
Yeah,
It's
they
the
got the sharp
cameras.
edges. And the good thing, and one thing I like, by the way, about speaking of the cameras on the new Samsungs, one thing I like about the cameras on the Samsung is that they're more flush. Like
Yes.
Apple keeps putting their camera, and I get it because they use like a bigger camera, like lens or whatever, in the iPhones and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But they always like pop out of the phone. So when you set your phone down, the where the cameras are is going to sit upright a little bit. So basically, with the Samsungs, they're more flush, they're more flat, and aesthetically, it looks very similar to the iPhone, but you can tell that the cameras are more flush with the device instead of being more like bumped out of the device. And I know it's because the way Apple designs their phone is because they're like, we want no air pockets, like which wasn't at first was not a good thing. Because Steve Jobs was not an engineer. I mean, he knew what he was doing kind of when it came to designing computers and stuff like that a little bit, but like he was not an engineer. So he would like basically his engineers would come to him with a prototype. I remember a story about Steve Jobs actually when the iPod was being developed. His engineers brought him an iPod, and it was very small, like because he wanted it small, he wanted it compact, he wanted it small, and they
Correct.
brought it to him, and it was small, and basically he said it's still too big, and they said we
Hmm.
can't make it any smaller.
Like
There's no way.
I know the story. He's like, we
Yeah,
legit do not have the
yeah.
technology
They were
to
like
make
they
this
well,
smaller.
not even what he did is they said we cannot. The engineer said we cannot make it any smaller. We can't do it. Like that's the smallest we can make it. And so what he did was he took the iPhone, or he took the iPod prototype that they had made, and he walked over to a fish tank in the office that they had, and he dropped it in a fish tank. He dropped just boop, in the fish tank, and air bubbles came out of the device. Like bubbles
Hmm.
came out, like air bubbles. And he
Hmm.
said, if there's room for air, you can make it smaller. And so the engineers were like, fuck. Like, he doesn't understand heat dissipation and everything else. He doesn't understand that
Right,
we need.
because that's the thing about that's the one thing he was criticized about was like
Yeah.
he was the guy with the vision, but he didn't
Yeah.
have the knowledge to execute. So that's
Yeah.
why
And
he
so
had,
he was like, make it happen.
yep.
Like, get rid of those air pockets, make it happen. And so they went,
Hmm.
the engineers went and they slammed their head against the wall for like a long time until they managed to make that iPod so much small, like that much smaller. And it came out, it was one of the smallest MP3 players on the market. And it had a lot of like almost like some of the most incredible features on it. And it had the easiest, like one of the easiest access. It wasn't great though, because that's when the Apple criticisms really started, because you had to use iTunes to get the MP3s onto your device. And this was during the era we all, well, I mean, some of our listeners might not remember this era, but I'm sure we remember it very well. But the LimeWire era,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
Napster era, before Metallica got their claws into pirating music, this was when you could just download MP3s off the internet willy nilly, pirate like crazy, and that's what most people who had MP3 players were doing at the time. They were
Yep.
taking their Sony MP3 players or their whatever that other cheap brand was MP3 players, downloading whatever MP3s they wanted and just dragging and dropping them onto the phone onto the MP3 player, and they were like, "It's easy." But Apple was like, "No, no, no! You need to use our proprietary software, iTunes, to load it on there." And at first, they didn't do the copyright protections. That came in a little bit later,
Yep.
but you had to use iTunes in order to get that onto your device, right? And people were like, "Oh man, this is stupid," but that was kind of the beginning of what's called the Apple ecosystem.
Yep.
And like that's their biggest thing with Apple, is that they have an ecosystem. So
Yep.
where Android is more open source, like anybody who knows how to make any kind of programming or anything like that can make an APK, which is the file type that Android operating systems use. They can make an APK, and that you could download it on your phone today off the
Hmm.
browser on your phone and use the software, and Samsung wouldn't have any say in it. Google wouldn't have any say in it. There'd be nobody could be like, you're not allowed to do that, like because
Yeah.
you can
Yeah. Like
you
that's
want
the
to do
thing, and yeah, no, 100%. Like whenever I had the iPhone, I I got it. That's whenever I understood. I was like, okay, I see why people like these.
yeah.
I get it.
And
It's if people just want a phone to work as a phone where they can browse the internet, use their apps. And by the way, the one thing I will give iPhone is they do have the best app support. Um,
kind of, yeah, yeah.
they do. They're like
well
they
it's
actually do.
well
They have a
it's
contract
big.
with a lot of apps that
Well, and
allow them.
it's because of the fact that your app needs to be approved by Apple before
Yep.
they'll let you sell it on an iPhone. Like your
Right.
app has to be
Exactly.
approved, one way or another. Like it needs to go through their approval process, which is now this is the thing, is if you're an app developer and you're listening to this part of the podcast and you're thinking, oh, they're gonna fully defend the Apple's procedure when it comes to APKs and apps and stuff like that. That is not the case. I do think that Apple should open their process a little bit. They should still verify apps. Don't get me wrong. That way it stops people from putting shovelware or putting malware and stuff like that onto their app market. But I do think that they should make it easier for independent developers to develop apps for the Apple
Yeah.
ecosystem, because
Yep.
as it stands now, they have an entirely different operating system, which is totally fine. That's good, and their operating system works a certain way, but the way of developing apps for the Apple ecosystem is stupid and ass backwards. And the
Yeah.
developers out there will know what I mean. I've watched a few videos of it, but I can't break it down scientifically because I'm not a developer myself. But I know that you need to develop it with like you need to buy a license key from Apple, which costs a lot of money. Then you need to submit it for approval. Then you need to wait for the approval. If it comes back, you need to change anything. Then you need to buy another license key, which is again very expensive. And you need to develop it all on Apple hardware. Like it has to be fully developed on Apple hardware. It can't be developed like on like they're like you cannot develop it on a Windows operating system to work on an iPhone. You need to actually buy the full Mac OS Apple operating systems and
Hmm.
develop it using only their systems. And that kind of leans into the fact that they wanted to be fully in control of their brand. They didn't want anybody out there to be able to make things for Apple that was outside of their control. So like even initially, like it's only recently that they've changed their chargers to a more universal charger
Yep.
that anybody can make, and then that was only because of legislation. They had to pass laws in Europe. I think it was in the UK specifically. They had to pass laws in the UK saying that your phone cannot use a proprietary charger. Your charger needs to be able to be bought from any store that sells cables, and those stores shouldn't have to only buy those cables from Apple. So like and because of that they did it worldwide because they weren't just going to make phones for the UK market and have
Right. Right.
universal ones for
And
that.
and I'll be honest about that. The C type charger, far superior charger than the iPhone charger.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
USB-C is it's I mean it's the final form of USB, which is like it's
Yes.
just the smartest development, the smartest design, the most simple design. You can't fuck it up. Like there's no more four dimensional like put it in that way it doesn't work, try the other way it doesn't work, flip it back around and it works. Like there's none of that anymore. If you want to plug your phone in, you just plug your phone in and you're good to go. And so, and because of that, I like the fact that Apple was like, okay, we can't make proprietary chargers anymore for the phone. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it so we use MagSafe. And so they switched over to
Hmm.
their MagSafe where they can do the now all phones mostly now have wireless charging where you can just lay them on a wireless charger like new phones because it's an easy technology to make. But it's like Apple did it first because they were like, well, you're not going to let us have custom charger cables, then fine, we'll make MagSafe so that our
Hmm.
phones have like wireless charging and they will do it first and better than anybody else, you know? And so like they really want to be fully in control. And it stems back to like we were saying Steve Jobs, he was more of a visionary. He was
Yep.
more of a Apple like cuz he believed at that point smartphones were coming out, Blackberries were like the most popular
Yep.
smartphone at the time.
Yep.
And it's funny because
Little scroll
actually
ball.
yeah, and I remember I used to work for the company that made Blackberries, the company Research in Motion. I worked directly for them. And I also worked,
Interesting.
yeah, I worked directly for Research in Motion in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. They had one of their biggest headquarters here in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, which is a town very
Oh,
close to where I
okay.
live. One of their largest operating centers they had there, and I worked directly for them.
Can I ask a quick question about
You can
BlackBerry real
ask,
quick?
yeah, of
You might
course.
know this. You might know this.
I probably do.
I've I've heard this. Um, when the market started shifting to the more touchscreen style and everything like that,
Hmm.
and Android started becoming a little bit more dominant of a name in the force other than just Apple.
Hmm.
I heard that one of the big reasons why BlackBerry failed was because they refused to integrate Android on their phones. They tried to use their own OS, and unfortunately, a lot of the new apps that were coming out for like iOS and Android were not supported on BlackBerry's OS.
That's partially true. That's partially
Okay,
true. Ultimately, what made Research in Motion, what made Blackberries kind of fail and fall into obscurity, is that when
little
Androids were
off
coming
topic,
out,
guys, but this is interesting. A little bit of history
yeah,
lesson here for
and it kind of
BlackBerry.
touches on it too.
Yeah.
It does touch on the whole Android aspect of things specifically, though, because and Apple as well. But what it was is that Blackberries as smartphones were never developed to be an everyday user phone. They were never designed or developed. Like they just kind of fell into that market because they
Hmm.
were the best at what they did, right? So they had the most applications, they had the best internet access, they had the best BlackBerry Messenger and everything like that. like was the most secure and encrypted. It had free texting before free texting was a thing
Right.
because you could use BlackBerry Messenger to communicate between any two BlackBerries as long as you're connected to the internet, and it was free. And
Yep.
so basically, they were never, though, designed for the regular everyday user market. They were never designed for the people going to bars taking selfies. They were never designed for the people that were
Right.
adventurous.
They were still a
They
phone. They were still a phone.
but they were a fantastic smartphone for the time. But the problem is that when Android came out and Apple came out very much with the idea of like the iPhone definitely came out with the idea of like an aesthetically nice like smartphone for the go-getter, for the people out there snapping photos, for the people out there partying. Like
Hmm.
for, if you like listening to music and you're like on the subway dancing, like your iPhone was the thing.
Yep.
Android was made for if you're a gamer and you're into like games and you're into
Or you're a businessman and you need to keep your eye on
not
stocks
even
and stuff
business at
like
all.
that.
Android, no, not at all. Android when it first came out because BlackBerry was business. BlackBerry was specifically designed for stockbrokers. It was designed for
That
business
is true.
owners.
I remember
It
BlackBerry
was
having a big
BlackBerry
part of that.
was only business. They literally had something that was called the BES, the BlackBerry Enterprise
I was
server.
thinking for some. Let me explain what I was thinking. Then it'll make sense. I was thinking of the very first Galaxy.
Yeah, but like that's like but the Blackberries were made and that's the first Galaxy that came out was specifically Android trying to compete with BlackBerry and they failed. They failed
Oh yeah,
miserably.
very first
Because
Galaxy.
yeah,
Yeah.
because they were
Oh
like
yeah.
because Android was like the new Android phone for business and literally everybody was like the BlackBerry is better in every single way for business. Like
Yeah,
every way.
because unfortunately that Samsung was trying to do a little too much with a
Yeah.
very underpowered system.
Well, yeah, and they had no idea. They didn't have the experience either, or
No,
the business acumen to
no.
know. Like, and like, so, but BlackBerry had something called the BlackBerry Enterprise Server, and what it was is it made it so that if you as a business bought 1,000 Blackberries, like you bought, like you're like, listen, I've got a company, I've got 1,000 employees, I want all of them to have Blackberries. I'm gonna buy 1,000 Blackberries, right? What you could do with a BlackBerry Enterprise Server is you can push out automatic updates, you could push out schedules, you could push out meeting notes, you could literally change the apps on your employees' phones. Like if you wanted to add an app to their phone, overnight, you could say, go to the BlackBerry Enterprise server on your computer and say, we want like these 500 people to get this app installed on their phone by tomorrow morning and just enter it into the enterprise server and the enterprise server would do it all for you. It would do it all like there was no manual. Like you could sync people's schedules, you could schedule meetings, you could do all kinds of shit like that. That was designed for business. You could have automatic stock updates at every time of day for your all of your employees, and you can see what each of the employees is doing with their phone on BlackBerry. So if you had it on an enterprise server, so if you had 1,000 employees with 1,000 BlackBerries, you could control them all from one central enterprise server, and
And
that
at
made
that
it
time, yeah, at that
and
time,
that's something you can
that's
do now with an app.
revolutionary.
Like
Yeah,
that's something you can
exactly.
do
Now,
now with
all of
we
that is down to just an app. You
we
know, like
literally use
it's
Connect. We use Connect Team. It does the same fucking thing.
yep. It
It does,
literally what you
yeah, it
just
does the same thing.
described was what Connect Team is now,
We literally
and you know
exactly right. And so, but this is a time when that did not exist. Connect
exactly
Team did not.
that's
That was
revolutionary type
unheard
of
of. It
stuff.
was
Yeah.
unheard of. And so, and not only that, but I mean, an employer could send out a message to all 1,000 phones. They could go on their enterprise server and say at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and this is adjusted for time zones, so wherever your employees are or whatever, you say at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, whenever the 9 a.m. is for those time zones, send out this message to all 1,000 employees on their BlackBerry Messenger, and it would send it out, confirm that it was sent, confirm that it was received, and then confirm that it was read. And this is before
Yep.
read receipts. This is before read receipts were even a thing, right? So, but BlackBerry was designed for business, 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 business. That's all they focused on. They wanted to be the stockbroker's phone. If you are in business, if you're in, and we're not just talking like business, like coffee shop business. We're not talking business like
They
family business.
legitimately wanted you whenever you pulled out a BlackBerry out of your pocket to think that you
You were a Fortune 500.
successful. You were a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
successful,
you were
like
Fortune
yeah.
500. If you pulled a BlackBerry out and you had a BlackBerry, especially when they first came around, you were Fortune 500. You
Yep.
weren't family business, you were Fortune 500 business, right?
Yep.
And so, and they were very successful at that. They were the most successful at that, and that's where they got their market share from.
I guess
Um,
the one thing they never predicted was looking cool will always outweigh looking professional.
And well, that's the cool thing too, though, is because Blackberries really did look like, in my opinion, they were cool
No, no,
looking
not,
phones
not
for the
that they
time.
didn't look cool. I'm talking about their marketing
But
strategy.
marketing strat, that's
Yes.
exactly what it was.
Yep.
Because when Apple came out, they were like, "We're hip, we're new, we're fucking
Exactly. And they were
wild, we're
like,
the ones
and then
out
you got
there."
these
And you're
younger
like, and
people
you're looking,
going,
you got young people dancing and partying and fucking like drinking and taking selfies with their iPhones.
yep.
And that kind of thing. And basically, like they marketed on that. And even when they were doing that, BlackBerry was not worried. BlackBerry was like, we're not worried because that's not our fucking market. Like we're not trying to sell to those people. They thought we are not trying. We're selling to businesses. We're selling to corporations. We're
Yep.
selling to stock people. We aren't trying to fucking get into the whole party hard market. That just happened accidentally. Like because
Yes.
they were
And
the best
then
because they were the best
inevitably
smartphone.
apps started coming out that made it a
And
little
then
bit
yeah, and then
easier.
that's the
And
problem is that's when
yep.
they started getting worried is because specifically not even Apple, because when Android came out, like when like Android started getting better at it, like because Apple when they came out for a long time, Apple was not business at all. Even to this day, Apple is more artsy fartsy. They're more like take nice pictures than they are
Yeah. Oh yeah.
than they
Like
are
they got
get
their
yeah.
business side, but honestly,
It's there, but it's only there. But
that's
Apple is like the opposite of BlackBerry in the fact that they went for the artsy fartsy and they accidentally fell into the business category.
yeah.
And
Yep.
BlackBerry was like business and they accidentally fell into the artsy
Right.
fartsy.
Right.
But
Exactly.
Android, what they tried to do from the very beginning is a balanced strategy. They tried to go for the whole we're cool and we're hip and we've got all the apps and games. If you
But they're
like
like,
gaming,
you can
they're
also
like, if
use
you
us
like
to make
gaming, get
money.
an Android. But also, we have great internet connectivity, and you can use your email from your Samsung, and like that
Yep.
kind of thing, right? So, and like they were trying to sell
We
both
have
ends of the
copy and
spectrum.
paste.
Yeah, exactly. And they were trying to sell from both ends of the spectrum, which worked like very well for them. And
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
eventually, that's where Android grew its market share from was the
And
fact that
I'll be honest with you. Okay. Androids, in terms of performance, in terms of smoothness, like how iOS is, didn't really get good up until about 8 to 10 years ago.
you're not wrong. Yeah,
And like it
yeah,
was, and I was whenever I got my Android and I loved it. Um, I also it came down to that we couldn't afford an iPhone for me. iPhones
yeah.
were always
iPhones are
expensive,
fucking
so
expensive, dude.
yeah, they're not
To
cheap.
this day,
So
if my iPhone wasn't free, I'd probably fucking I'd have an
right,
Android
right.
still.
So like that's I remember whenever I finally got like a pretty flagship phone, and it was the Samsung Galaxy S3,
Hmm.
and I was I was I would be up until about the S9 to S10 Samsung. Every other Samsung before that, I'm sorry, all my Android users, all my people, yes, some of them had better cameras, some of them had really cool features, some of them so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
they
But in
always had a
terms of
nicer screen.
right, they always had a nice, pretty screen. But in terms of longevity and performance, Apple had their ass all the way,
Yeah,
every time, and it wasn't up until about the S9 or S10 that, like, I had an S10 for almost 6 or 7 years, and it
yeah,
performed incredible. Right
yeah.
now, I have an S20 Ultra that I still use. Not currently, like I have an S25 Plus right now, but um, I still have my S20 Ultra that I use on a pretty
And it works
regular
fine.
basis, and
Yeah,
it works
it works fine.
fabulous. Like nothing's wrong with it. It works perfect.
Yeah,
Um, so like it wasn't up until that point that you could really start saying, "Hey, I wonder what like now they're actually competing. Now it's
yeah,
actually doing something different."
yeah.
And then
And I remember
that
when the first iPhone came out, like
yeah,
specifically. I remember
yep.
when the first iPhone came out. And basically, it was funny because I was working for a company called Convergys. Some of our listeners might know the company name out there because it is one of the largest call center companies in the world. It employs almost 10,000 people, I think, and it's a call center, and it's one of the largest call center things in the world. And I worked specifically for AT&T. It was when it was known, actually, it was funny because when I first started there, it was called something different, Singular Wireless, and it got bought out by AT&T and it became AT&T, formerly Singular Wireless, then AT&T, the new Singular Wireless, then the new AT&T. That's what we went through, all three iterations of the name.
Fun fact. When iPhone got first released. I don't know if you were about to say this. Now I feel bad. Go ahead and say it because
No,
I don't want to take
well,
the
no,
shine.
I was gonna say because I was working for the BlackBerry for the research and motion.
Hmm.
So BlackBerry, that's the reason I got hired on at BlackBerry is I actually left this job shortly after this. But I was working for their specifically their BlackBerry support team because they had a BlackBerry support team for their.
Ah, okay.
So I was working at Convergys for their BlackBerry. I started off as customer service, then I went to tech support. Then I went to tech support specifically for Blackberries because they had their own BlackBerry support team. And then I went to tier two BlackBerry tech support, which is when tier one tech support can't figure it out. They go, well, shit, we'll call the big guys upstairs and see if they can figure it out. So I would get that call. And so I was tier two. And I was working for tier two tech support on the Blackberries for probably about a year or so. And
Right.
then the new iPhone came out. It was announced the new iPhone is coming out. This is going to be exciting. Like the new iPhone's coming. It's going to be big. It's going to be huge. This is really exciting.
It's gonna
And
be
and so it's going
huge.
to be huge. And so our company said we are going to hire some internally from our tier two tech support, 6 employees. We're going to take 6 employees from our tier two tech support, hiring internally. So submit if you want it, to be the new Apple support team. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. I'm excited. I want to do this. Like, I want to do
Mm.
this. This is really cool. I've heard a lot of cool specs about the iPhone. I'm so excited. It's never come out. And I'm so stoked, so excited
Yeah,
to.
that
I
was
want to.
probably pretty
I
cool.
was
You're
like,
probably like,
I want to be on this
yo,
team.
I'd
I was
get
like, I want
hands
to.
on
Yeah,
with this.
yeah, I want to be on this team. I was like, I have to be on this team. So I applied for it, and I ended up going through the interview process. I got chosen. Me and 5 of my other coworkers, and uh,
Nice.
and so I ended up working for
Congratulations,
the
man.
iPhone team. Well, that's the thing is, don't congratulate me too early because it kind of sucked. Because what happened was we started there, and when the iPhone first came out, Apple had a policy in place that no external tech support people could do any kind of actual tech support on their phones. So they had a policy saying only Apple can do the support for the phone, but you can hire a customer service team. So my job became a customer would call, say, my iPhone won't turn on. I could do nothing for that person. My policy was can't do shit. Not allowed to ask them to, like, I can ask them to turn the phone off and turn it back on. I can try to get them to restart the phone. That was it. If it didn't restart, my job was dialing the 1-800 number for Apple tech support, waiting on the fucking line until I got through to an Apple support agent, and then telling them what the customer's problem was and transferring the call. That was my job.
Oh
Going,
my Lord.
talking to the Apple tech support, saying this is what's happening with the customer,
So you
and
were
them
just a
saying, okay,
middleman.
I was literally a glorified secretary. Like that's it. That was my job. I was a middleman. My job was to, and then I'd talk to, and I'd say, "Hey, Bob, this is so and so from Apple Tech Support. They're gonna take over the call from now, and they're gonna guide you through how to fix this problem. Thank you very much for calling the new Singular Wireless. Have a wonderful day." And then I'd transfer the call, and I'd fucking hang up, and I'd wait for the next beep in my ear to tell me that there was another customer coming through that I was gonna do the exact same thing with. And so I was I went from being like super excited I was going to get to work with this new technology and work with this new hardware and this new software that had never been worked with before, was just coming out, and that excitement immediately fucking shot down to the basement, man, like just gone. The excitement was gone. And so I was like I did that for about a month and a half, 2 months probably is all I could stand. The other people around me actually dropped like flies. Like the other 5 who got hired with me got replaced within a few weeks. I held on for like a month and a half, maybe 2 months, and then I submitted my application for Research in Motion, because my buddy Mike worked there, and he was like, "Listen, we're doing a hiring wave here soon. Like, so if you don't like what you're doing now." So I was like, all right. And I fucking submitted my application to Research in Motion. They called me up. They were like, hey, they were like, we're interested. We see you've got lots of tech support experience. We are hiring for tech support. So like, we'd like you to come for an interview. I went for an interview. They loved me during the interview. I got called back for a second interview with their board of directors or whatever. That went really, really well. And then I got brought back in for a third interview, which was like a training interview, basically for like an aptitude thing. And I did that one, and they were like, listen, you're hired. Come on in like right away. And I know called no showed it. Convergys. I quit that job. I was like, I'm never coming back here. I never intend to work in this call center again in my life. So I was like, literally the day I quit, I was
Thug life.
they called me about halfway through what was supposed to be a scheduled shift of mine, and I was like, oh yeah, no, fuck you guys, I'm not coming in. And like that was it. No call, no showed, quit.
Yep.
Started working at Research in Motion right away.
Yeah, man, that really seems like that was like that was a good choice to kind of go towards BlackBerry like that because at that time they still had a pretty big impact on the market world and everything like that, and that was a really good choice to stick with that. You know, unfortunately, I know the excitement sucked. I know that
Yeah.
that
Well, it happens, and it taught me a valuable lesson about knowing what you're getting into before you get into it. You know what I mean?
right,
Like it taught me a very valuable lesson about knowing like it's like when they were saying like when they were telling us about the new iPhone department and everything like that, I should have been able to infer the fact that we weren't going to be able to do anything. Like I should have been able to kind of figure out okay, the
but
way
you were
that they're
excited,
wording,
you know.
yeah, the way that they're wording things, it kind of sounds like we won't actually be doing the tech support. We'll just be there to kind of help customers, which is like more customer service oriented than tech oriented. And at that point in my life, I was really fixated on problem solving. I liked that about tech support is customers would call me, they'd say, "This isn't working," and we would figure it out. You know what I mean? Like we'd be like, "What do we
Right,
got to do?" And we'd like download programs and restart phones and like find new hardware and blah blah blah, blah and like solve a problem that somebody had, and we would actually like have to do some serious thinking about how to fix it. And
right,
and when they made me basically not be able to do any of that, I had to go look elsewhere for it, and that's why going to Research in Motion was substantially better. It just was like way nicer. I went there, I went immediately into tier 2 tech support there. So I went over there as a tech support specialist, tier 2 tech support specialist over there. The training was better. I don't want to get too much into the company, I guess, culture because it wasn't great. Like we were really
right.
kind of like that's another reason why they failed is because there was a lot of misogyny. There was a lot of like there was just bullshit. It was not good. The company itself was
There's
very
issues
toxic.
for sure.
A lot of the managers were very up their own ass in the worst way. And so like that part of it was terrible, but I loved being able to solve problems again. Like I loved when some dude was like, "I'm losing $20,000 a minute. I need you to help me." And I'd be like, "Let's go, bro. Like let's go.
Yep,
Let's
let's
do
figure
this."
this
And
out.
we would sit down and I'd end that call and the guy would be like, "You just literally saved me $350,000. Like you don't even understand how much I appreciate what you did and like everything else and stuff like that." And it was like almost exciting again. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
It was almost exciting
Being
again.
that
Like
problem solver.
when I like I have a bit of an NDA, so I can't talk about like I've got like I think another like 5 years on an NDA. But like basically I can't talk about specific companies that we worked for, but I can go as far as saying that there are some like I've talked to the CEO of some Fortune 500 companies that like they make millions of dollars daily and they had something fuck up with their BlackBerry Enterprise server, and they were like, if we don't get this fixed, we are gonna lose millions. And like, I helped them fix those problems. You know what I mean? And it was exciting.
Right.
It was like,
Yep.
it was stupid fun. Like, and I enjoyed that, and I did that for a little while. But unfortunately, they did a massive run of layoffs, and I was one of the people included in that massive run of layoffs.
That's
Thanks,
whenever they
Apple.
started having issues. Yeah, you did
That's
great.
an
Thanks, Steve.
yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Steve.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve, because your amazing phone did so fucking well, I ended up losing my job along with about another 1,000 other people. So,
So, with that being said, what ultimately, because you said you ended up getting gifted an iPhone, so that's
yep.
kind of what initiated the switch.
Yep.
How long ago was this? What kind of
Uh
Android did you have? And would you ever consider attempting a newer Samsung?
to all those questions, yes, yes, and yes. I got gifted a free iPhone. Like I was saying, so I had an HTC. Like I said, I loved HTC. That was my go-to brand.
Honestly, I do too.
Um,
We actually, I by the
like
way, I work for I am an indirect agent for Verizon, meaning I'm not directly under Verizon. So I work for a different company that
yeah,
works with
he,
Verizon as like
he
a
gets
third
to
party
he
source.
gets to sit in the cuck chair while Verizon does things.
Right, right, and I just kind of do the work and the motion in the background, and then I take the
Yeah.
money and they leave.
Yeah.
But anyways,
That's right.
but yeah, so like like I see a bunch of phones come in. The other day we saw a because people come in because we offer trade-ins for like we'll give you $450 for an iPhone 3G, like
Hmm.
like that kind of stuff that they're running right now in terms of
Yep.
promotions and stuff. But that it was pretty crazy. It was cool to see that. I saw an HTC One come in, and it was a long time since I've seen one of those. I saw some of the old LG phones. Um, it's pretty cool to see all these old
Yeah.
phones pop up. I saw an old Galaxy S2, S3,
Yeah. And I
Galaxy
think
Rush.
what I liked the most about HTC was their hardware. Like I
Mhm.
loved that because HTC, when all of the other phone companies were switching to making their phones like entirely out of plastic, like 99.999% out of plastic,
Yep.
HTC was like, our phones are metal. We have
Yep.
metal phones. Like they're made of metal. Like that wide like you carry this thing around with you every fucking day. You drop it potentially. Well, we're making it out of metal. And it was heavier.
Yeah, Samsung
When you
kind of
held it,
started that trend of
like it's like
plastic.
I like the weight, you know? Like I like when things have weight to them. Like it's like
Feels strong, feels durable.
I like a heavy mouse. I like a heavy keyboard. I like a heavy controller. Like I
That's
like a
what I
heavy
like
phone.
about this. It's an aluminum frame with
Yeah,
a tempered glass back and
and,
all that
and
stuff.
even
It's
my
pretty cool.
phone, like it's a heavy phone, you know, it's got weight to it, and like the
Yep.
newer but that's because the new phones have the technology. But HTC, when everybody was trying to go as light as they could, as minimalist as they could, HTC was like, we're gonna make strong fucking phones that
Yep.
have a good like they use the Android operating system and they used it in the best possible way. Like they had a really good user interface, really good design, really good layout, extremely good customizability. You could customize that phone in every way. You could customize all your icons, your backgrounds, your color scheme. You could make it black and white if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like they really kind of focused heavily on letting the user do whatever they wanted with the phone, which is something I loved at the time.
Again, that's what Android is very,
Yeah.
like
They're well known
known
for
for
that.
is the
Yeah, they're known
customizability.
for that.
So
And so I loved the HTC, and for years like I started off like when my non-smartphone era was Sony. I liked Sony Ericsson. And like obviously Motorola.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But outside this once that era kind of came to a close, I switched over to HTC and
If
every
I'm
phone I
correct,
had.
HTC was also not to cut you off, sorry. HTC was also the very first one to integrate the front speakers.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely, yep. And front facing cameras as well. They were one of the first companies that did that too. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, which is really cool. But I loved, honestly, really loved HTC, and I would always go with HTC smartphones. I never really got into Galaxy too much because by that point, by the time Galaxy was coming out, I owned a BlackBerry. Because
Got you.
I worked with them, and so I owned a BlackBerry and I used that. But once I stopped dealing with Blackberries and stuff like that, I went back to HTC pretty much exclusively. And there was another no name. It was like a no name Android that I had for like a year at one
Which
point because
HTC model did you have?
I had the HTC One.
You did
Yeah, I
have the
did have
one.
that one.
Okay.
I did have the one. I had fuck, what was it called? HTC.
I'm downloading the pictures. That's why I'm asking.
I can't for the life of me remember now. It's been over 10 years, right? So I have no idea.
Did you have this HTC before the HTC one?
Which one are we talking about?
The one that you're trying to remember.
No. I had it after.
After, okay, so they have an HTC One X, an HTC Desire, an HTC One M9, and an HTC 10. I'm looking at right now.
I think it was the HTC 10.
Let me see.
No, oh no, it was pre 2016. That came out in 2016. So what one was it? So 1 second here. Trying to
Maybe it
figure
was
it out,
the
but
One X.
it might have been. Well, it might have been. I might have had the One X as well. Oh,
Running
HP
Android
still.
4.0. I think that was Android Kit Kat, if I'm correct.
Yep. Yes, you are correct. Actually, they
Yep.
had actually the one another fun thing about Android is every Android operating system has an Easter egg.
Yes, and a
So
unique name.
yes, and a unique name, and they're always named after desserts or
Yes.
foods.
Yes.
And there's an Easter egg if you go to the settings in your phone and you go to the about section and you do a certain sequence of events, it'll pop up with like a cute little animated thing that's usually either the KitKat operating system had a Nyan cat that was made of Kit
Yep.
Kats. And Marshmallow had a bear that was made of marshmallows, and there's a
Yep.
bunch of stuff like that. That's like really, really cool.
Some of them
S'mores
get
was
even
another
as
one.
in depth as being a little mini game. Like
Yeah,
it's
they'll
it,
have like a
you
little
know.
mini game or a video, and it's really cool, really cool. They always have an Easter egg like that. But when my last phone broke, that was it was a cheap Android of some kind. It was one of those fucking free phones that you get. It wasn't like a Wowie or anything like that.
Hmm.
But it was like some cheap smartphone. It was a piece of crap, terrible phone. But when that broke, I didn't have a phone, and I was like, I couldn't at the time afford a new phone. And thankfully, a family member of mine was like, "Hey, I have this iPhone. I never use it. It's like it works perfectly fine. It's perfectly great. I just upgraded, and I don't need it anymore. So you can have it." And I was like, "Sweet." So I took it, and up to that point, I was the only time I'd really used the iOS operating system was on an iPad because I'd used it when I was working in car sales,
That was
and
my
I
introduction to the besides that an iPod Touch, like
yeah
genuinely like flushing through an iOS system was an iPad.
yeah, and I went through the iPad there because I used it during when I was working in car sales, and I used it for like my family members had them and that kind of thing, and so I played with them, and I fell in love with GarageBand. Fell in love with I fucking
Yeah. Yeah.
loved like.
And that's one thing I also was going to give Apple is they definitely have those unique apps that are very beneficial to,
Like I can tell
like
you right
content
now,
creation and music and
yeah, the one
film and
reason why I probably would never switch back from iPhone to Android is because Android doesn't have GarageBand. And it doesn't have anything that's even a pale imitation. It doesn't. There's no apps that you can get for the Android right now that do what GarageBand does. And I fucking love it. I like messing around with it. I love playing with it. I love making songs with it. Like I just enjoy using it, and I'll mess around with it when I'm sitting on the toilet. I'll just make like a cool little beat or something like that, right? And so
yep. Yep.
like
The only
that
thing that's
alone.
close to no
Well, they have
uh
like beat maker and stuff like that and everything else, but it's
Android you
not
can
near.
get Fruity Loops.
Which, like, I don't use FL Studio. I don't. I've always been when I use. It's funny because I'm a lot of buds listening right now. A lot of you people at home might not know. My I started my life in music. Like that's what like I used to do tours with bands and stuff like that. And when I got tired of touring, I started making electronic music and producing electronic music at home because you can do it from your home and you never have to fucking go anywhere. Like so you wouldn't have to stuff yourself in a van with five stinky dudes and travel across the country, which was awesome because I fucking hated doing that. So I started producing music, and what I started on was a program called Ableton. And for all of our music producers out there that are listening right now, you'll know that the rivalry between Ableton and FL Studio is like the rivalry between Apple and Android. Like, but different insofar as nowadays Android and Apple can do pretty much the same things. Like they pretty much can do anything an Android can do, and Apple can do anything an Apple can do, and Android can do. Like it's all a matter of the software. Hardware wise, they're the same, but how the user interface looks the same and stuff like that. That's what we're talking about here. But FL Studio and Ableton are worlds apart in functionality and how they work. And if you've learned how to use Ableton, it's like learning how to ride a bike and then someone making it so that when you turn left, it turns right on a bike, like you
Yep.
learn to ride a bike and you ride a bike normally, and then someone's like, okay, now I've developed a mechanism where if you turn the steering wheel left, it'll make you go right, and if you turn the steering wheel right, it'll make you go left. Learn how to ride the
Yes.
bike again, and you get on that bike and fucking fall down over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and you'd be
Yep.
like, this is the worst bike I've ever ridden.
And
That's how I feel about FL Studio.
right. No,
It's the worst bike I've
I
ever ridden.
that's understand. I enjoy FL Studio, and that's probably because I was just used to it. That's what I was introduced to with like music production and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but that's not my cup of tea. My cup of tea is like Sony Vegas and iMovie and like that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Microsoft Movie Maker. No, I'm just kidding. That's some old school stuff that doesn't exist anymore. By the way, y'all probably some
yeah.
of the younger audience probably don't even know what Microsoft Movie Maker is.
It was one of the most fire movie editing softwares in the world.
Dude, it
They
was
have a
like
new one.
so
They have a new one
complex.
now. It sucks. Don't even Google it. Don't even look it up. If you go to like they have one,
It's
like
equivalent to a just like a phone edit now, like not even. It's equivalent to like a 2013 phone
well, like
editing.
the one that they have now, like there's one on the Microsoft Store. Actually, I found it like a little while ago, like a few weeks ago when I was looking for like something to edit a little video that I had downloaded. and Microsoft had one, and I downloaded it to try it out. And the fucking biggest, boldest fine print when I installed it, first of all, the end user license agreement said that they use AI, and if you edit anything using this program, they have the right to use it to train AI models, which is like, fuck you, that's my art, you're not stealing it.
Right.
Like, if I edit it and I put my flavor and my taste and my texture into the editing of this, I'm not letting you take that, train an AI model to rip my face off and pretend to be me. It's not
Oh,
going to happen.
absolutely not.
And so aside from that, I was like, okay, I'm still going to download this, just kind of see how it works or whatever. Like, I'm not probably not going to use it, but I'll check it out. Like the whole thing from the moment, like I uploaded a clip to edit, and it was like, do you want us
Excuse
to
me.
scan and do you want us to scan this and edit it for you using AI? How about you use AI to enhance this video? Do you want us to use AI to automatically do the subtitles for you? How about use our AI features for, and I'm like, man, fuck off. I'm an artist. I'm here to do art. I don't want you to get a computer to do it for me.
Yeah, that,
Like
that's
this
that's
isn't, it's not like vacuuming my floor. I can get a robot to vacuum my floor because I don't fucking want to vacuum my floor. So let the robot do that. I want to make art. Don't
yep.
ask me to get a robot to do it for me. Like, I'm an artist, dude. Like,
That's one of the well, that'll be a whole another episode about
that'll be
how
a whole
AI is
episode. Yeah,
ruining
well,
content creation.
yeah,
But
like we'll
I
definitely
have
have a whole episode about
strong
that.
feelings about that. But
Same, same.
yeah, so that'll definitely be
So
another
like yeah,
episode.
and that's kind of how I felt like so with FL Studio though and Ableton like I was more of an Ableton guy so like FL Studio like doesn't have the same kind of functionality that Ableton does so I can't learn to use it. I mean if
I
you're and
understand that.
but if you're limited on a phone if you are using an Android download FL Studio if you want to make music because FL Studio is very functional when it comes to making music. I just don't like it myself.
Right. It's not his cup of tea. It
No.
doesn't mean it's horrible. It's
No,
just
and
not his cup of tea. It's
honestly
like me
I'd
with
rather
iPhone.
use GarageBand.
Not my cup
Yeah.
of tea, but it's
Yeah.
not horrible.
Exactly,
I'm not saying it's
exactly.
bad at all. Like even down
No.
to like you mentioned the iPads and stuff. Like now Samsung even has a very 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 competitive tablet.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, the Galaxy
with
Notes and stuff like
yeah,
that, and or the
when
not the
no
Galaxy
the
Tab.
tabs. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the Galaxy
tabs.
Tabs.
Man,
Oh
the
yeah.
I was looking at the S10 Ultra tab, right? It's called the
Mm-hmm.
S10 Ultra. It's a giant 14.5-inch screen tablet.
Whew. It's
Why
bigger than
I was
some
interested
laptops.
into it because it has a anti-glare coating over the screen.
Yep.
And man, I saw that in person in the middle of daylight, in the middle of the like it's clear, super
Yeah.
clear, no reflections off of it. You can exactly see what you're seeing. And coming from a director, a filmmaker, and stuff like
Yeah.
that, that's
That would be
that's
so useful
very
to you in the
needed,
field.
very
Like,
needed.
yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
so useful for you. You'd be out in the field and you'd be like looking at dailies or whatever and looking
because
at stuff
well,
on
I can
the tablet.
essentially review my footage that I just filmed on this tablet as if I somebody was watching it late at
Yeah.
night or in the movie theater or what have you. You know.
Yep. Yep. And they have and a lot of it's cool too because I know I watch the Corridor Digital guys. I'm sure you know exactly who they
Oh
are.
yeah, yep.
I watched
Shout
those
out
guys
to
and they
them.
were, yeah, shout out to fucking Corridor Digital. They are one of
And
the
film.
most
If you guys
amazing
want to know anything about film, Film Riot.
film visual effects, anything
Yeah,
like that. Those
yeah,
guys are like that team of people are so talented and
yes.
they break it down in such a smart way and such an easy way to
Mhm.
understand that it's like, check it out. But like shout out to them. But um, like they did an episode about how there's like a software now that you can like film things on your camera and have it wirelessly synced to your like tablets and that kind of thing all
Yep.
around. So as you film things, like the director can sit there with the tablet there and what they're filming is immediately on there so they can watch it
Yep.
right away. Like
That's
it
exactly what I was
used to
talking
be
about.
yeah, it used to be that you'd have to like film it, then you'd have to like upload
Go
it, then
back
you'd
to
have
like
to
this tent
transfer it.
room,
Yeah, then you'd have to
like
go
or
back and you'd have to
yep.
sit in there and watch the dailies and everything else. And now you could literally just sit in a chair right there and immediately rewatch the
No,
footage
like
that
if
you've
you
just
don't like
filmed.
it, you can be like, oh no, right
And
here.
you're like, no, reset,
It's so
like
and
reset,
coming
roll
from
again.
an independent filmmaker where it's so hard to get anybody in general to want to come and film for a couple
Yeah,
hours or for an entire day because a lot
yeah,
of people don't realize that when they get into the film world, not to get too much off topic here, but it's very difficult to dedicate people to having a full 8-hour schedule and get people to understand the grasp of how difficult it is to repeat what you just did 10 or 15 different times
yeah,
because you want to make sure you have the right shot. And then when you're done with that, like, okay, next scene. and you got to repeat that entire process again. And
Yeah.
so that, that's very tiring, and it's hard to get people to convince that.
Well, it's like
And
how
so
all the winners and really cool people at home don't realize that it took us 52 tries to get the intro to this episode done, right? I mean, it's like
yeah, like that's like exactly, like all that good stuff, and
it took
it's
us
so
52
so
takes, man.
so yeah, so
Not
having that
really, but
tablet, man, like that, it's so much
yeah.
more time efficient, because you don't
Yeah.
have to pause the
You
film.
don't have
I
to be
mean, you
like, all
do,
right,
but you
five
don't have
minutes.
to.
Yeah, you don't have to be
Right.
like 5 minutes and then go back to your tent, watch, come back out, like
Yep.
reset,
Yep.
five
Yeah,
minutes.
exactly. You can
Like
literally watch
you
it
can
right
literally
there.
watch it and be like,
All
reset,
right,
we'll try it again.
let's do it again. Yep.
Yeah.
One more time.
Reset.
Or
Yeah.
good. That's a take. Boom.
Or reset, take it from this line because everything
Yep.
before that was fine. Or like that
Yep.
kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
So
And you can really pinpoint that too.
yeah, and it makes life a lot easier. And like I mean, and that's one thing that, in my opinion, the only problem is that with the iPad, if you buy an iPad, you know you're getting an iPad. You know exactly how well it's going to work, and it's going to work well. It's like Apple would not let it go out if it wasn't going to work well. So they released the iPad that works well, but with Android, you need to get that Galaxy, like that
Yes.
Galaxy S10 iPad or pad tablet, I should say.
Yeah, you
The
need to get a
Galaxy Tab.
Galaxy tablet. You need to
Like
get a Galaxy
because
tablet
you can go out and buy like a Jim Bob Mobile tablet with
for like
Apple,
a
and it's
hundred
got,
bucks,
with
or
Android,
70 bucks.
on it for $50, and it's gonna run like shit, and you're gonna be like, man, this Android tablet fucking sucks, dude. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
dude, it's the Jim Bob tablet that
Yeah,
sucks.
it can't
Like,
run the Android that
it's
it
like,
has on it.
it's not the Android that sucks. It's the Jim Bob that sucks. You know what I mean?
And
But the
that's where
problem
Android
is
gets
that,
criticized. They get
like,
these
it's
like
because,
phones,
yeah, and
that
it's
are
because
just
they'll work
can't
with
run.
anybody. They'll work with anybody, and that's understandable because it's kind of like Android is more like Linux. Like
Yes.
anybody who wants to can make their own version of Linux operating systems, and like if it sucks, it still has the Linux name on it. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it's like, even
Exactly.
if it's like, if people are like, man, this is literally like every icon makes a fart noise when I click on it, and when I log out, it's a really loud anime girl
And
screaming
you
like
just
she's
see
having an orgasm.
a Linux
Like
character with a big old
like
thumbs up
and
in
a
front of
Linux,
it,
yeah,
like,
like and a Linux character, and like like, and it's Linux, you know what I mean, and
yep.
it's got the Linux name on it, so it's like, oh man, like Linux sucks. No,
But
that version of it sucks. And
right,
so
exactly. And
so with
and with that
Android,
being said, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say with Android, you've got to buy the good quality. You've got to make sure you
Exactly.
buy the good brand, the good quality, and like generally they're gonna be more. Yeah, you're gonna pay two, three, 400 more or more for a good tablet,
But you
but
won't
it's
regret it.
but you won't regret it, and it'll function and actually last and longer. And like, because this happened with my kid when he was younger, my parents would buy him. He'd be like, "I want a tablet," and they'd be like, "Okay," and they'd go out and they'd buy him a $50 tablet, and then next year it would be broken, or it wouldn't work, or it wouldn't download any of the games he wanted to play, and he'd complain about it being broken, or he'd complain about the apps not being there. And my
Or
parents would
being
be like,
slow, or
"Man, this is so stupid. We buy him a tablet every year, and it keeps breaking, and he keeps breaking them, blah blah blah, and they don't work and everything." And I was like, "It's because you're buying a $50 tablet. Like, if you bought
yep.
him one that actually was, if we buy him one that's actually good, it won't be broken in 6 months. It won't
Yep.
be. It'll function." And it's like, so like, and that's why I like Apple, is because when you buy, if you buy a phone, a tablet, or a pad, like an iPad, and
Hmm.
it has the Apple operating system on it, you know that Apple made it, and it's going to function exactly how you want it to function, like from
Exactly.
out of the box, right? And
Yep.
so like, and the problem with Android is that, and it's got the Android name attached to a pile of dog shit
Right.
and a pile of really good phones. Like there's a pile of really really good tablets and really good phones, but there's also just as many like complete dog shit $10 phones that you can buy from whatever company, and like they sell them by being like, "Oh, it's
Yep.
really really good. It's really good. It's got Android on it." And then you're like, it breaks in 6 months, and you're like,
Yep.
"Android sucks." And it's like,
Even
no.
down to, like, because Android's gotten into the desktop and computer game now, like their operating
Yep.
system is not like, I'm people at home don't know, every single podcast you've heard has been on my end has been processed through HP Chromebook,
Yep.
and there's the name right there, HP, running the Android system.
Yep.
So it's a very fairly pretty smooth operating
Yeah,
experience
it
on
works.
this
It works as
thing.
well as it works as well as a Chromebook could work.
Right, exactly. And the thing about it is, you still got those really crappy
Yeah.
uh, laptop brands that run it, and people like, oh, Chromebooks are horrible,
Yeah,
and
you can go
no,
out
no,
and
they're
buy
not.
like you can go out and buy like the Wow Chrome brand that's like a
Yes, yep,
$50 Chromebook
yep.
laptop and like
Perfect
they're like
for
runs on Chrome operating
documentation
system.
editing and like all that kind of stuff. And
And you load it up and it takes 5 hours to open Internet Explorer, you know what I mean? Like
yes,
or
yep,
to
and that's why
Safari.
like Android is also really good at processing web-based apps and web applications and stuff
Yep.
like that. Like I've noticed that when I would use the Discord web browser on my Windows operating system, that it would be glitchy, it'd crash out, all this kind of stuff. But when I use it on this Chromebook on Chrome, it works beautifully because it
Mm-hmm.
it downsizes it to the app. And it
Yep.
makes it, it eliminates all the unnecessary cookies, any resources that would make it crash out.
Yep.
It's a lot better system with that kind of thing. And that's the thing too, is and I've experienced with me being skeptical on other Androids. I probably missed out on some pretty cool Androids because I just was like, I don't trust it. It's not Samsung. I don't, like it's not,
Yep.
I don't think it's gonna be that good. And then I've over here like Razer. Razer has now a folding phone that, like the Z Fold phones that they have,
Yeah.
that you can fold, and it's like 3 times more powerful than the Z Fold itself. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
expensive phone, but it's also a gaming phone. It's supposed to be more powerful, but
Absolutely. Yep.
that's something that, like, one thing that I will say Android, and again, this isn't a versus comparison, but
Yeah.
definitely Android has over Apple, is an awesome, like, diverse ecosystem in terms of different types of
Absolutely. That's
products,
one thing they always had. That's one thing they always had. And that's one thing that I always liked about Android way more than Apple. Is that
Yep.
Apple like has a very closed ecosystem. Everything has to have the Apple aesthetic. Everything has
Yep.
to
You
have the
you
Apple
got your
functionality.
iPad and your iPhone.
Yeah, it has
That's
to
it.
have the Apple
Well, I mean, besides the
functionality.
computers, but
Yeah, and it's like, and they want you to have the most recent version of it, even if it looks the same and functions essentially the same as the old version. But Android has always been more like, hey, listen, our operating system is made for anybody who wants to make a mobile device that functions.
yep.
That's it. How you use it is up to you.
Why
How you design it
Microsoft's phones failed,
is up to
and
you. Oh my God,
not Microsoft. It was Microsoft's
no,
fault
it's
that
Microsoft.
Nokia almost died.
Yeah, it was micro. Yeah, but the Windows Phone was so bad, and you know what?
As
And that's
when that
and
came
it's as
out, I
bad.
was so interested in it because it was so different, and I thought it looked cool with the tiles and stuff.
I
And then I
hated that.
realized that no apps had any support on this phone,
Yeah. I hated the
dude,
tiles, dude.
and then the
I
tiles
man,
just didn't work. It was glitchy.
like
It was
I
like a
know, I
light
just
version of Windows 8. It,
like
it was just, it
aesthetically,
was a
like
mess, dude. It was a
it's the reason
mess
why they went from Windows 8 and immediately went to Windows 10 and didn't even bother.
because
Like
Windows 8 was
they
horrible.
had like 9 NT, but 8 was so bad, it only lasted less than a year before
You
they
know
were
why?
like,
You
no.
know why 8 was made? If people don't know this at home, I'm sure you know this.
Yeah.
Windows 8 was created for the sole reason that Microsoft was hoping that everybody would buy their Surface, their
Yep.
very first Microsoft Surface. And don't
Not
get me
even just
wrong,
the Surface, but their phones as well. It was
right? Because
Windows 8
they were going for the
because they
phone market.
wanted they
And
wanted to
yep,
have their phones and their PCs to have the same UI. That's what it was.
yep, that's
They were
exactly what
like,
it was. They wanted to be integrated like Apple. They were trying to be
yep,
like Apple.
yep. They were like, oh,
And
we'll make it so that Windows on the rather than making the phone have more of a Windows aesthetic, they were like, we're gonna make everybody's computer have more of a phone aesthetic. And it's like,
yep,
fuck you,
exactly.
dude. It's so
Exactly.
dumb.
And don't get me wrong, modern Windows Surfaces, fantastic
Hmm.
systems. They're
Hmm.
great. They're
Yo, yeah,
beautiful. They have OLED screens. They operate fantastic. They know
yep,
what they're doing. It's a
yep.
fantastic system. But that first Surface
Yeah. Well, it's
almost
because they
made
stopped trying
Surfaces
to
not
make.
exist.
Well, yeah, and they really messed up by trying to make it so that their PCs functioned like a phone. Like I don't want to on my PC bring my mouse over to a tile, have to click on the tile, have the tile like over and open up another string of tiles,
Yep.
then like click that tile and then click that tile and then click. It's like how I never use Steam Big Picture mode. Why would I ever use Steam Big Picture mode? It's fucking
It's like they
useless.
saw the beginning of the Monsters Inc. movie where the animation of like all the different
Oh
you know
yeah,
what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they were like, "Oh, what if you click this drag here, click
Well,
this drag here?" It's
they
like,
were like, hear me out. What if we made this a UI?
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean?
exactly. And it was
Like
so bad. It was so
now,
bad.
what
That's
I will
and
say, the Windows 8 operating system I thought did work well for in terms of look and style. I
touchscreens.
liked it. I liked what not even touchscreens in my opinion. The Xbox.
Yep.
I
Yep.
thought the Xbox served well with
Well, it
the tile
reminded me of
system.
the old Razer, the old what is it called? The Blades, the
Yes.
Xbox
Yep.
Blades dashboard.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
that was
I
peak early
loved that
2000s.
one. Yep.
Like that was peak early 2000s aesthetic, and
Yep.
like it's collectors still look for that. If you've got an
When
Xbox,
you had your avatar in one of the slides with all your
yeah,
friends, and
yeah.
you
If
could
you've
move
got
your
an Xbox
avatar
that
and
hasn't been updated or connected to the internet, you may be sitting on a gold mine because like people
no,
will pay
realistically, like yeah,
like
yeah.
people will pay. I saw a dude online was like, yeah, I have this because he went out and bought like used broken Xboxes and repaired them or whatever, and
And one
checked
hasn't
whether
been
they had
booted
the
up
old.
in like
And,
15 years.
yeah, and if they had the Blades system or whatever, he said that one of them sold for $11,000, an Xbox
Yeah.
that had the Blades OS, and I was like, that's wild, dude.
Yep.
But like, but when it comes down to Apple and Android, like I've always like just getting back to the main topic real quick
Oh yeah.
before we call it a day. But with the two of them, again, we do want to say that we don't dislike either one. I don't dislike Android. I would never say, oh my God, that person's like, there are some people out there that are iPhone elitists that are like, I can't believe they use an Android. And there's people that are Android elitists that are like, oh
Like
my God, look at that
I
pompous
wouldn't touch an
asshole using
iPhone
an
with a
Android.
10-foot pole,
Yeah,
you
using
know?
an iPhone. Look at that pompous asshole and stuff.
Yep.
But to be fair, I think use first and foremost whatever phone you can fucking afford.
Yes.
It's life's expensive nowadays. Mine was free, so I use it.
Yep.
If I had been offered a free Android, you know what I'd be using? An Android, and I wouldn't say no, but like use the phone you can afford.
Yep.
If you
And
like certain things about the user interface, or like if you like certain things about the Apple ecosystem or whatever, like that kind of thing, that's okay. That's
yep.
totally fine.
And if you want to buy a phone to just buy one and forget about it, I'd recommend Apple. You know, I'd recommend Apple because you don't have to do much to change, even down to like, and I don't agree with this, but it completely falls in line to their whole gimmick of like you don't have to do anything to our phone; it's just going to do what you need it to do.
Hmm.
Is so for a little bit there, we've talked about how Apple, especially in the recent like last 10 years, has fell behind in terms of small hardware improvements.
Oh
Like
yeah,
things that should have been updated already.
yeah.
But they
Right
finally
now
starting to get it.
they're only adding things that Samsung had like 10 years ago,
Exactly. Like
basically.
like
Yeah,
one of the things that Samsung had back all the way down to like the S7 was an OLED screen.
yeah.
And and it took Apple forever to finally integrate that. And when they did it, the iOS looked beautiful on the OLED
Hmm.
screens.
Yeah.
But but they but yeah, like Apple, even though they fell behind, they still stayed consistent with everything in terms of what they know they needed. And now I didn't like this. I think it was the iPhone 15 they finally did it, or even maybe the newest one. They now offer 120 hertz refresh rate on their screen,
Yep.
and whereas Samsung has had that for a while. The only thing Samsung lacked with this, if you went to the 120 hertz, it went down to a 1080 screen. But honestly, 1080 on a small screen, if you're not really, really, really paying attention, it looks really good still. But
Yeah.
now, like mine, it's a 4K screen with the 120 hertz, and I get to choose the 120 hertz. Like I can forcefully keep it always at 120 hertz, where Apple is in between 10 to 120 hertz, and it chooses it for you based off of what you're doing at the time.
Yeah.
So you don't always have that really, really pretty smoothness because Apple doesn't, it chooses for you. Like, oh, you don't need that right now. And personally, I don't like that. But people who don't care about that refresh rate and screen rate hertz and all that stuff, get the iPhone. It'll work better for you. If you have family and it's you like especially with the Apple's parental controls, it's a
Yeah.
lot more effective.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think now, especially because the way that times are going, is that more and more the phones are kind of getting similar features because they're just features that make sense. They're common
yes.
sense features. And so, like family controls, different, like the auto throttling and that kind of stuff, it's like it just makes more sense for them to have
Yep.
those as features because it's kind of common sense. You're like, hey, if you're running a really high demand app, let it have like an up like
Yeah, yeah, and
differential
that's where
refresh
Apple
rate.
honestly knew that they were gonna lock that in is like
Yeah.
they understood that people like features. And I know people that only have iPhones because of iMessage and FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
FaceTime's amazing, dude. It's honestly way better. But I mean, that's the thing is they've got like a million things on Android for that now as well because they just make sense.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, man, it's like there's a lot we could honestly like go on and on and on and on and on about different features for both phones and everything else and that kind of thing. But I do want to encourage all the buds at home. Comment below. Let us know
Yes.
your opinions on this matter. We didn't do
Are
many
you
call
you
tag.
team iPhone? Are you team
Yeah, you,
Android?
yeah, you team
Would
Jacob,
you?
you team Edward. Like, what are we doing? What are we
Right,
talking?
yeah. Are you willing to make a switch? Does it seem interesting to you?
Yeah,
I will say if you are an iPhone user and you are thinking about switching to a Samsung because it's piqued your interest, Samsung is the best option in terms of trying to feel as comfortable as possible with
yeah,
something new
yeah.
because they're very similar now, and
Yeah, they
you know,
definitely the UI will be very familiar to you.
it's just you get those Android perks. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that said, we should probably roll into the outro because we're running out of time for today,
yep.
but
Unfortunately,
we will be back for another wonderful episode next week. If you buds have any suggestions for future conversation topics, please feel free to drop those down below in the comments because we are all ears. I mean, well, we're like 10 to 20% ears, but it's good enough.
what?
So
No, I'm just kidding.
So feel free to just comment down below, or just notify us some way or another on one of our social medias about any ideas you might have.
Absolutely.
All right, buds, we're gonna roll the outro. Let's go.
Woohoo!
So that's it for today's episode, buds. Share your opinions on the topic in the comment section down below so we know how you feel about things. And feel free to suggest some topic ideas for future episodes.
Also, you can check us out on our social media Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and more in the description below.
And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, remember to like, comment, and subscribe because it helps us beat the algorithm overlords.
So, thank you all for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you next time on the Chronic and Shank Variety Conversation Podcast.
For winners and really cool people.